It's going to be very tempting to use AI as a weapon. In fact, it will be used as a weapon. So the on-ramp to serious AI, the danger is going to be more humans using it against each other. I think there are not things that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think will probably happen. Humanity really is not evolved to think for existential threats in general. We're involved in thinking about things that are very close to us, near term. To be upset with other humans and not to really think about things that could destroy humanity as a whole. But then in recent decades, just in the last century, we had nuclear bombs which could potentially destroy civilization. Obviously, we have AI, which could destroy civilization. We have global warming, which could destroy civilization and severely disrupt civilization. You know, it would be something the same way that humans destroyed the habitat of primates. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be destroyed, but we might be regulated to a small corner of the world. When Homo sapiens become much smarter than other primates, they pushed all the other ones into a small habitat. They're just in the way. Over time, I think we'll probably see a closer merger of biological intelligence and digital intelligence, and it's mostly about the bandwidth and the speed of the connection between your brain and your digital extension of yourself. You could make a swarm of assassin drones for very little money by just taking the Face ID chip that's used in cell phones, having a small explosive charge, a standard drone, and have them just do a grid sweep of the building until they find the person they're looking for, ram into them, and explodes. The biggest issue that I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do, and they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much less smart. We're dumber than we think we are. This tends to plague smart people. This just can't. They're defining themselves by their intelligence, and they didn't like the idea that a machine could be way smarter than them. So they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. That's the wishful thinking situation. I'm really very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential. You can see this in things like AlphaGo, which went from the span of maybe 6 to 9 months. It went from being unable to beat even a reasonably good Go player to then beating the European world champion, who was ranked 600, beating Lisa Dole 4 to 5. Who'd been world champion for many years, beating the current world champion and beating everyone while playing simultaneously. Then there was AlphaZero, which crushed AlphaGo 100 to 1, and AlphaZero just learned by playing itself. It can play basically any game that you put the rules in for, whatever rules you give. It literally reads the rules, plays the game, and is superhuman for any game. The way in which a regulation is put in place is slow and linear, and we are facing an exponential threat. If you have a linear response to an exponential threat, it's quite likely the exponential threat will win. That, in a nutshell, is the issue. Normally, the way the regulations work is very slow indeed. Usually it'll be something, some new technology. It will cause damage or death. There will be an outcry. There will be an investigation. Years will pass. There will be some sort of inside committee. There will be rule making. Then there will be oversight, eventually regulations. This all takes many years. This is the normal course of things. This time frame is not relevant to AI. You can take 10 years from the point which is dangerous, it's too late. Any group of people, like a company, is essential a cybernetic collective of people and machines. That's what a company is, and then there's different levels of complexity in the way these companies are formed. It's this, like a collective AI. In Google search, you know, where we're all sort of plugged in like nodes on the network, like leaves on a big tree, and we're all feeding this network without questions and answers. We're all collectively programming the AI. And Google plus the older humans that connect to it are one gigantic cybernetic collective. This is also true for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all these social networks. They're giant cybernetic collectives. It feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI effectively. We are building it, and then we're building progressively. Greater intelligence and the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. Eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence, but the AI is informed strangely by the human limbic system. It is, in large part, our ID writ large. There are all things that we like and hate and fear on the internet. They're a projection of our limbic system. AI would be used to make incredibly effective propaganda that would not seem like propaganda. So these are deep fakes that influence the direction of society and elections with artificial intelligence. Just hones the message. Check the feed, looks at the feedback, makes this message slightly better with milliseconds. It can adapt its message, shift, and react to news. And there are so many social media accounts out there that are not people. Like, how do you know if it's a person or not a person? There will be fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better than I think some kind of a universal basic income is going to be necessary. The output of goods and services will be extremely high, so with automation, they will come in abundance. Almost everything will get very cheap. The much harder challenge is how do people then have meaning? Like a lot of people derive their meaning from their employment. So if you're not needed, if there's not a need for your labor, do you have meaning? Do you feel useless? That's a much harder problem to deal with. And then how do we ensure that the future is going to be the future that we want, that we still like? You know, I think that there's a potential path here, which is having some sort of merger with biological intelligence and machine intelligence. To some degree, we are already cyborgs. The digital tools that you have, your phone, your computer, the applications that you have, like the fact that you can ask a question and instantly get an answer from Google, or from other things. So you already have a digital tertiary layer. I say tertiary because you can think of the limbic system kind of the animal brain or primal brain, and the cortex. Kind of like thinking and planning part of the brain, and then your digital self as the third layer. So you already have that. And it's like if somebody dies, their digital ghost is still around. All of their emails and their pictures that they posted on social media, that still live even if they physically died. It's mostly about the bandwidth, the speed of the connection between your brain and your digital extension of yourself. We used to have keyboards that we had used a lot. Now we do most of our input through our thumbs on a phone. That's just very slow. A computer can communicate at 1 trillion bits per second, but your thumb can maybe do 10 bits per second or 100 if you're being generous. So, I think some high bandwidth interface to the brain will be something that helps achieve a symbiosis between human and machine intelligence, maybe solves the control problem and the usefulness problem. If you can't beat it, join it. Narrow AI like vehicle autonomy. It's narrowly trying to achieve a certain function. Narrow AI is not a species level risk, but deep artificial intelligence or general artificial intelligence, where you can have AI that is much smarter than the smartest human on Earth. I think this is a dangerous situation. If humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very careful. This is the most important thing that we could possibly do. We've got more exclusive updates, like this one on our channel, so make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to get the notifications of the latest videos.